Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's investment show, Modern Investing on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today's guests are uh, Dr. Milan Somparak. Welcome to the show, Milan.
Delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure as always. And Jim Eid from Eid Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you for having me, Sasha. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And today is Wednesday. The market is up. Even believe it or not, Nvidia is up.
Yes.
That's highly unusual because it's so overpriced and there are so many headwinds. And everybody hates this stock because it did so well previously, but it's up today. We don't know about tomorrow and some other stuff. But my theory is, though, that September, it's the end of a third quarter. And because all the mutual funds and ETFs and all others, they have to report pretty good quarter, and especially first three quarters of the year. And in my opinion, what will happen is that there has to be some kind of a window dressing to show the its investors how their funds are doing
Yeah,
so well or so on.
of
If
course.
you analyzed most of the ETFs and all funds like Vanguard funds and so on, you will see that stocks like Nvidia, they are a big part of any fund. There is no single fund over there that has no Nvidia. And most of the funds, it's stock either number one or number two or number three in all those holdings. For example, I have initiated just a couple of days ago position on SOXL, SOXL. And that stock, if you will look at what the underlying securities are in that ETF, it's a triple ETF. They have 8 stocks only, and some of them are, of course, Nvidia, of course, Broadcom, AMD, and other well-known stocks. So, in case of a window dressing, all of these stocks will definitely go only one way. It's up because you cannot do the window dressing using like TNA, for example. This represents all the small cap stocks or so on. You cannot get anything out of it. It's like a dead horse. You can put some money into it. If your horizon is 5 years or even better, 25 years, okay, you will get something out of it. But we're talking about the end of this month. So there will be no bang out of this TNA, for example, and some other stocks. By the way, today Dow is down over 200 points. Now, today's day, is there any indication of what's happened yesterday's in the debates, Jim? What do you think?
I don't know about that, but I do know that all the AI stocks that I've invested in and am following have done well today. NVIDIA, AMD, as you mentioned, Marvel, MRVL, as I've mentioned a few times now, and
Yes.
Taiwan Semiconductor, all of them are up. And I just think this is more confirmation that the AI boom is not crested yet, far from it. These stocks are still going to be generating more and more revenue into the foreseeable near future. And revenue can't look at a downside of increased revenues. So I'm still behind the AI stocks. The results of the debate were you could not say that Trump won that debate. Harris clearly dominated. And how that affects the stock market. So many people are under the false conclusion that the Republicans are better for the stock market. Well, what has happened to the stock market from 2020 to 2024? It's boomed. So I would say if you're interested in the market, you would want to continue what's going on and not go back to the previous administration, which all he could do is talk about tariffs last night, and tariffs hurt the American consumer. It's such a profoundly bogus way of saying that it will help people. It only hurts people. Tariffs are not the way to go. Almost every this consultant would agree with that. Tariffs have to be used very judiciously, and that is not a word that you associate with Trump. So I think Harris helped herself with independence, with people. Trump is going to hold on to his base, no question about that. But the people that are swing voters, undecided, or independent, I think Harris has made a tremendous progress with them. And I think it's good for the economy, but the market doesn't like uncertainty. It's still too razor's edge to say anybody is way ahead or anything like that. So the market's still, I think, in September and October, going to be up and down. But the AI stocks, I think, are pretty solid.
Mm-hmm. Milan, what do you think about? You watched yesterday's debate. What do you think?
Well, James, you said the market is going to be up and down. That's one of the few certainties of the market. It will fluctuate. Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned SOXL, Sasha.
Yes.
And it only has a small number of stocks.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And they're all innovation stocks, right?
Yes.
Both Trump and Harris yesterday spoke about manufacturing. And we really should get out of manufacturing because people who are in manufacturing hate their jobs. They love Fridays, they hate Mondays, and manufacturing could be replaced by innovation. And so that's really what we ought to target. Now, yesterday's debate really, Trump looked really poor. And Fox News, which has been supporting Trump forever, is on Harris's side recently, and she has some prominent women supporting her. It's looking like United States is going to have a woman.
You're talking about Taylor Swift?
Yeah, Taylor Swift is one example, and so there are others, and so it looks like the United States is ready for a woman president. Margaret Thatcher did very well in Britain, didn't she?
The time has come, and it's long overdue. But it couldn't be better for the country if we go in a new direction with someone like Harris, who's a senator and attorney general, state attorney general for California, which has the fifth largest economy in the world. And her experience is it cannot be denied. And I think that also it's just of the positivity that she generates rather than the negativity that Trump generates is good for the country. I think that as long as when he's talking about we're going to fall into ruin if we elect him, no, we aren't. The only chance is to lose our democracy if we elect Trump. Come on, he's going to call a military aid to the border. He's going to get people, he calls it a bloody thing to get illegal immigrants out of the country. What are you going to do? We're going to have to show our papers and crossing states. And maybe when someone knocks on our door, do we have our papers? This brings to mind another era in our history, and it could happen again. People have to be aware. There's nothing that can prevent someone like Trump from just militarizing everything, and maybe loyalty oaths are around the corner. So it's just, this is a big election, and it's for democracy or not for democracy. The economy is going to be fine.
The Trump supporters will remain Trump supporters.
You can't.
Supporters will remain Harris supporters. The undecided voters will make the difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct.
And yesterday's debate, Harris sure looked good. And the undecided voters will make the difference. Now,
well, people say that debates don't matter, but the first debate, Biden dropped out, and the second debate, Trump looked so miserable and so tired and worn out, and he just rambled. It was almost incoherent, and he kept going back to immigration, no matter what the question was. And he didn't answer yes or no questions, So his performance was so poor. The Republicans have to be scratching their heads. Why did we nominate this guy?
It's astounding that he has so much support.
Well, they nominated him because of two reasons. Number one, because his base and
Yes,
they figured out that Trump is
undeniable.
better positioned to sort of control its base than anybody else. And number two, he was perceived as the best fundraiser of them all, including Nikki Haley and any other candidate. So now you could figure out if there would be a full scale debate between Trump and Nikki Haley, I think his result would be the same as yesterday. She would just take him apart.
I think so too.
That's what exactly they wanted to avoid, and they nominated him. Now I believe the Republicans regret it. Especially, you can see Republicans, including Cheney and his daughter, and many other prominent Republicans. They openly said that they will not vote for Trump, and most likely they will vote for Kamala Harris. So this is also troublesome because each of these Republicans, they have their own basis, they have following, they're very influential, and even Senator Graham, he was not very pleased with yesterday's debate. And he said it openly about it. So now I think that this ticket of Trump and J.D. Vance, which was just fantastic disaster yesterday, especially when they're talking about dogs and cats.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
There is something else I wanted to mention on foreign policies. I remember Trump was claiming that he will end the war in Ukraine in 1 day or 2 days or 5 days or maybe 8 days or whatever it might be. And when he was asked how he would do it, so he has personal connections to Putin and Zelensky, and he will talk to one and then another one, and he will end the war. How away can you do that if they're so much apart on what each one wants as a result of the war? Russia wants to annex probably 1/3 of Ukraine, and restrict Ukraine from joining NATO and probably European Union, and decrease the size of Ukrainian army to 500,000 people or maybe even less. So to make it basically the Russian province, that's what he's trying to do.
Of course.
Now, Ukraine wants a full independence and get all the Russian soldiers out of its territory. So how you can reconcile it, even if you're Donald Trump, and especially now with everything that's going on, it's highly unlikely that he has previous admiration of world leaders, especially Kamala Harris was very quick yesterday to say that she met personally most of the world leaders and they despise Trump, and she said it right into his face. And she did actually a few jobs quite well. And Trump he said something about Viktor Orban, the Hungarian president. He is amazed with Trump and he wants to be his friend and so on and on. Viktor Orban recently, he visited Trump in Mar-a-Lago, and from there he went right to Moscow, then to Beijing, and know who is Viktor Orban.
Right.
Previously, back in the 90s, he was a Hungarian mafia member. He was a close associate of Russian mafia figure by the name Mogilevich, and he was actually his very close associate. So that's about people like Kim Jong-un and Emperor Xi, and these are type of people that the Trump is friendly with. Would you think that American people deserve president like that? I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, well, an increasing number of people agree with you, Sasha, and so the world is ready for a woman president in the United States. Now we're talking about investing here, and so I'd like to touch on writing covered calls. The premium income on covered calls can be significant. And so the closer the expiration date when you write a covered call, the greater the percentage premium income.
Percentage.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yes.
And it has been possible with SPY, which is an exchange trap ETF that tracks the S&P 500, so it tracks the American economy. That has been possible. It has been possible with that to write a covered call first thing in the morning, expiry date same day in the evening. And that has been possible with SPY, I think 3 times a week. Well, now recently, that has become possible with a large number of stocks. And the Wall Street Journal yesterday or a couple of days ago wrote an article about a large number of ETFs and stocks with which it's possible now to write a covered call first thing in the morning, expiry date same day. This morning, I did that. I wrote covered calls on SPY, expiry date same day, just out of the money. It's the best returns are just out of the money. I got something like $150 US per contract. That's an incredible source of income. And now it's possible with a large number of individual securities, which nobody should buy. People shouldn't buy individual securities. So you focus on individual securities, but we avoid them. But it's possible with a large number of ETFs and individual securities to write a covered call first thing in the morning, expiry date, same day, at the end of the day.
Milan,
Our investor that. Yeah.
could you illuminate what is the premium on these calls that you're propagating? What is the premium? Premium on SPY? Minuscule. It's almost neglectable compared to the security itself, because SPY is now what, 550 or so. So to have 100 shares, it requires what, $55,000,
Right. Yeah.
and you are being paid $150. What percentage of the security itself? It's really minuscule.
That's for one day. You know that the premium that we earn, that is possible to earn guaranteed, is today. SPY, first thing in the morning, I sold covered call on SPY, expiry date the same day, and got something like $150 for one day.
Hold on. Let's analyze it. The SPY is the moment you sold covered call was what, 550 or what was it?
Right.
550. Okay.
Close
So you're for $150, you are taking a risk that SPY will go much higher than you sold it, and you're leaving a lot of money on the table for $150, but you may leave thousands of dollars on the table. On the other hand, if SPY will go down even a fraction, even $1, it will go down, it will eat easily, say $1.50 down. It will eat easily your premium. Now it will go $2 down, then you're in a losing position. So it's a very, very narrow situation where you can make actually money. If SPY, the best scenario for you, it will stay the same. It will not go higher, it will not go lower. Either way, you're losing.
The best way to make money, Sasha and James, is to write a covered call and keep on writing covered calls on SPY until you're assigned. And when you're assigned, you're in cash.
Yes.
When you're in cash, you are now able to sell cash covered puts. And you keep selling cash covered puts as long as possible until you're assigned, and then you own SPY again, which puts you in a position to write covered calls on. That approach will give you, over the last 100 years, the equivalent of 16% annual return. Now, if you have an asset allocation, as we all should have, of roughly 50-50, 60-40 also works, 55-45, all those work. That's not important. The important thing is to have a lot in cash. If that half of your asset allocation then is in cash, then you wind up getting 8% annually guaranteed return. Sasha, that was hard to
Okay, I mean, in my case, the asset allocation doesn't really work. I'll tell you why. Because I have my core portfolio, which I don't touch. I don't trade. I don't write any covered calls or anything like that.
Unknown caller.
And so in this case, what I'm doing is I'm operating only my fund portfolio. So
Yeah, right, sure.
to me, it's much more than fund portfolio. It's a money generating portfolio. It's much more so than my core
Unknown
portfolio.
caller.
And therefore, I try to have as minimum cash as possible in my fund portfolio. And in fact, I added my position to SOXL simply because the additional income that was generated increased my buying power. And so I bought another couple of hundred shares in addition to 1,800 shares, so now I have 2,000 shares of SOXL. And I'm not running very quickly to sell covered calls on that, because what I'm looking at this somewhat bigger picture. The bigger picture is that the all-time high of the security was about $65. Now it's under $30. It's getting close to $30. And if it will go to say around $35, that's a time when I would consider to sell covered calls, but not before that, because I'm going to be taking a risk to leave a lot of money on the table, and that's the last thing what I would do.
You're talking about something that applies to individual stocks, which we don't recommend.
It's not individual stocks, it's a security which provides a triple opportunity on well-known artificial intelligence stocks, same as NVIDIA, AMD, Broadcom.
Well, I've got some questions for you guys, but this is really modern investing, because you're talking about selling covered calls for a day. That's not something we used to do. But Mark has popped up, and before I ask my questions, I'll defer to Mark.
No, I just had a couple of quick questions. One of them was definitely involving what y'all talked about earlier, which is the debate, and it actually ties back to investment and economics. But I was just wondering y'all's thoughts, because one of the things that came up in the debate was whether or not former President Trump actually went to the Wharton School of Economics, and whether that is a important part of his kind of curriculum and part of his background and everything, because he even came back and tried to say that he has some supporters in that particular prestigious school. So I just wondering y'all's thoughts, because I know Kamala tried to make an issue of how a lot of economists are backing her plan and everything. But I just
why doesn't he release his transcripts? You know, he's going to release his transcripts when he releases tax returns. You know, this guy is just one lie after another. And he said he finished at the top of Wharton School. You know, he said that multiple times, but he can't back it up. And yes, he'll have a supporter or two, but the majority of people, as Kamala Harris said, you know, he has detractors. He was a terrible student. And doesn't that add up to what we saw last night? That guy couldn't pay attention. He thinks he can be a chess grandmaster. Man, the guy cannot sit at a chessboard and stare at a chessboard for hours. No, man, it's tough for me to do it. I can't see him doing it at all.
Actually, he was bragging while in school, he was one of the best chess players. And if he would put more time into it, he would become a grandmaster. Maybe
that's nonsense. Yeah. But why doesn't he release his transcripts and prove it?
Yeah, he needs to release those transcripts and everything. I did have two other quick economic questions, and I know you got a bunch, and I'll turn myself back over to you. But I know one of the things, because we talked about it before, that some people in that fund portfolio like to invest in crazy things like the lottery. And I'd be lying if I told y'all that I hadn't bought $2 tickets. I think I won $5 on one of them. So I guess I come ahead. I'm just gonna go cash that $5 check and everything. One of them is a $5 winner. I haven't scratched the other one, so maybe I've won more than $5 and everything along those lines. But I know for a fact, and you know this, Jim, that a lot of people have been excited, and sometimes it is the people that are doing catfishing and stuff like that folks can go to their local store and they can get all these lovely gift cards, some of them that are legitimate gift cards like Amazon and Steam, which is a gaming one, and a number of other things. So, as an investment, what do y'all think? Because I do know that sometimes the catfishers will want you to send off an Amazon or something else like that to support whatever their dream is that is happening in their life and everything. But I do know
Right.
that there are a lot of people that love those discount cards, which is what a gift card is, whether it's to Chipotle or Barnes and Nobles or to whatever your favorite restaurant is, both here and in Canada. So, what is y'all's take on gift cards in general, since we are getting ready to come up on the holiday season?
What does it all have to do with investment? It's
Some people are investing in those companies. That's why my question was: is it a good investment?
Hold on, what companies are you talking about?
Amazon has gift cards. Zaxby's has gift cards.
Okay, I don't mind to invest in Amazon, but it's an uptrend, by the way, and I think you can make serious money in Amazon stock. I don't have Amazon stock. I
No
had
do I.
a couple of times Amazon, but you see, the Amazon is a company of such a size that to believe that it will climb substantially, say 10, maybe 20% in the near future, it's a stretch. It's possible, though. But I think other stocks represent better investments.
That makes sense. And the last question, and this is a stock question, because we've also talked about housing on your show as well and everything, is I read an article recently where some people are excited about solar, and I know that solar has its proponents. I think, Jim, you might even be a proponent of solar, but I've heard a lot of people are excited about the notion of metal roofs. Metal roofs to me seem like they could be dangerous and not all that safe, but there are a lot of people that are wanting to invest in metal roof companies, and housing is an important part of the investment portfolio of a lot of people. So what is y'all thoughts around this notion of either apartments or houses being filled with metal roofs and all along those lines?
Well, can I talk about that for a minute?
Of course.
Please.
I'll say that that belongs in a fund portfolio. And a fund portfolio, three things about a fund portfolio. Number one is no one needs one. and,
Except me.
And I do.
and
But there's only two of us, Jim. Everybody else
That's
does.
it.
But the two of us, we still would love to have one.
I wouldn't be as happy without it.
the second thing about a fund portfolio is it should be small enough so that if you lose it totally, you still don't change the way you live.
I agree with that.
Don't change your lifestyle. And the third one is don't keep records because you are sure to be disappointed. Now, you're talking here about individual stocks, but we talk about not trading and not stock picking. We talk about owning the American economy as a whole in a 50-50 asset allocation. And when the market drops and becomes a bargain, we buy more bargain stocks. And when the market rises, we take profits. Now, typically, as the market is rising, people are jumping on board. People who drive across town to save a few bucks on groceries are buying the market when it's expensive. When the market tanks and becomes a bargain, people are running for the doors instead of buying the market as a whole.
Well, I agree with that too.
I can't help but to read one more time what the prominent investor, unfortunately, he passed away a few months ago, and when he was asked the question exactly this, I'm talking about William O'Neill, of course, founder of Investors Business Daily. When did you first find an approach that worked? He was still young at the time. And here is his answer. Back in 1959, I did a study of the people that were doing well in the market. I think this is a very realistic approach. Why don't you study the best? At that time, the Dreyfus Fund was a very small fund managing only about $15 million. Well, maybe at that time it was not so small, like by today's standards, it's really nothing. But still, Jack Dreyfus, who managed the fund, was doubling the results of all his competitors. That's really something. So I got copies of their prospectus and quarterly reports and plotted on charts precisely where they had purchased each of their stocks. Now listen to that.
And he was doing it by hand. Creating charts with pencil and paper.
Exactly. There were over 100 of these securities, and when I laid them on the table, I made my first real discovery. Not some, not most, but every single stock had been bought when it went to a new high price.
Yeah.
So that completely defeats the what Milan you just discussed. That when something stock going up, you sell, and when it goes down, you buy.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Dreyfus had different strategies, though.
you're talking here about momentum investing, and trend is much more likely to continue than it is to reverse itself. But sooner or later, it will reverse itself. And so, buying on the rise, momentum investing works in the short run. But we're talking really, we should talk about the long run. The long run could be much longer than our lifetime because we have families. We have to have a way of dealing with inheritance that we pass on to our families. And so buying a bargain makes sense, and taking profits when it rises also makes sense. And the result has been over 100 years now, 16% annually. Now, if you're 50-50 cash, and like David Svensson recommends, 50-50 cash, 50-50 the market, then that 16% becomes a guaranteed 8% based on over 100 years of owning the U.S. market as a whole. What's wrong with that?
Well, I have my ex-father-in-law told me once that being of sound mind, I spent it. So he's telling me don't expect any inheritance. I wanted to go back to a shout out to Holmes Stoner, who some of us know. Holmes was hoping to solve the housing crisis by building steel houses. So the metal roofs would have been a part of that. But he ran into regulatory problems because our regulations didn't cover, he couldn't meet the regulations as written, and they didn't cover steel homes. So, instead of being able to go through the political process of changing policy and changing regulations, he abandoned the idea. But, what if we were the kind of society that could respond to something like that? It was innovation. It was a way to solve a terrible problem right now, affordable homes. And, Holmes Stoner had an idea that would have worked, that could have worked. And, our regulations prevented him from making that a reality. So, there are things that can be explored, but the problem is if it's a new thing, if it's new technology, you're going to have to be aware that it's going to be a struggle to make it happen in many times.
Yeah, I mentioned previously that when a builder puts the shovel in the ground to start digging the basement, he is already half finished. And everything that precedes that shovel in the ground has to do with regulations and building codes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And those could be
You're absolutely right, Milan. The housing permits and all of that kind of stuff is really a struggle for us. But the idea, I propose sane regulation. I don't think we're overly regulated. I think we're insanely regulated because we have regulations, we add to them, but we don't subtract the ones that no longer serve or the ones that are getting in the way of innovation. But this is also going to rear its ugly head with the AI stocks. It already has. People are wondering, how are we going to restrain this? Because of the downsides of the AI stocks, people don't know. AI seems threatening. And it can be threatening in the wrong hands. There's no question about it. So what are the regulations that we need? And unfortunately, we have people that are, generally speaking, too old to understand AI in Congress. And they're the ones that are supposed to pass these regulations. This is what's one of the problems in our society now. We need the people that are on board with what's happening now, because the rate of change is not going just up, it's accelerating up. So, we have to be on top of this to allow these innovations to come in safely, of course, but to allow them to come in and change society. Now, this is what people are afraid of, change. But This is the only way that the American market, is going to continue to succeed. It's been innovation that has kept us ahead. It's innovation that's going to keep us ahead. And this is the thing that we do well as a country. And so we have to get our politicians online with what the progress. And Kamala Harris represents that. And she's more aware than most people of what change is coming down the road. And we don't need a near to 80-year-old man who doesn't understand how tariffs are bad for the economy, getting his paws on things like AI. So beyond him, it's not impossible. It's impossible to imagine him making any positive contributions in this area.
Regulations and building codes are put in place by bureaucrats.
Yes.
And the primary objective of any bureaucracy is for it to grow. Yeah. So I mentioned one time I built a small pond and I had to direct a small river into the pond and over the flume and back into the river. So I asked for permission for that, and 5 suits showed up for that. Now, I was young and inexperienced. Today, I would say 5 of you guys doing the job that I could do. Who do you answer to? Who do the bureaucrats answer to? Do they answer to our politicians? Do they answer to Congress, Parliament in Canada? I don't know who they answer.
The bureaucrats have to answer only to higher bureaucrats. So the bureaucracy system, it's a business, and it's like government in government. Mark, maybe you remember, we had once a discussion on World Edition about affordable housing. And the reason was that there are like 70-some thousand homeless people in California, and even more in the state of New York, or so on. So this discussion was very interesting. So I don't remember who was, maybe Nick, I don't remember who was a proponent of affordable housing. Basically, you build efficient, small apartment buildings where you will house all the homeless people.
The answer is, the average house today is twice as large as the house that you grew up in.
Okay, so you build small apartment buildings and you put there homeless people. Most of the homeless people, they are not working. Most of them never held any job in their lives. So once you put them into these houses, let's say free of charge, they don't have to pay anything upfront. But they have to still pay some kind of rent, or I can't believe how you can house 70-some thousand people rent free. It's impossible. Some kind of rent they have to pay. However, that's not all. They have to eat something. So we have to supply some kind of a soup kitchen or something like that. Forget about no soup for you.
There are other ways. We need to take a close look at a guaranteed annual income. Which will allow people to buy that soup or the food that they need and so on. A guaranteed annual income is possible.
Okay, so you provide housing, you provide food. So essentially, you're creating all-inclusive vacation style lifestyle where people they have place to be, they have food to eat, they don't have to pay anything for it. And who is at the end of the day will pay for it? Because I don't believe that there will be so many builders who would agree to erect all this affordable housing, or food suppliers who will provide the free of charge food for
guaranteed annual income so that the people who need it can buy it.
No, but Sasha and Milan, along those same lines, how would you deal? Because I kind of mentioned it just briefly, and I'll mention to all of y'all because I don't mind sharing and everything. That right now, as we are talking, because I just got a text, I said I would tell y'all I got that text and everything. My dad is going through heart procedure. Fortunately, it's going well according to his lady love and all along those lines and everything. But I know that Dad and his lady love, who is a well-known business coach and part of the Jewish community, between the two of them, they can definitely afford it. But a lot of other people cannot afford the kind of care that he's getting from the prestigious Duke University and everything. So how would you say, even as an investor, to deal with that? Because a lot of people won't be able to deal with the cost of medicine and everything. I know that came up in the debate as well and everything. So I just don't know how we can address that. So your thoughts, Jim, and even Sasha and the Milan, because like I said, it is something that is on my heart because it's what's happening right now, and I got that text that things are going well and everything.
Well, I think that that's doing well. It's interesting, I am on a medication that I have to take, the side effects of which are it prolongs life. So I'm not going to complain about that. But it cost me $14 to have the prescription filled. $14. In the United States, that drug costs $32,000 a month.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm paying $14. Aren't you glad, Sasha, that you live in Canada?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, one of the things that came out in the debate last night was the diabetes drugs have been lowered. The cost of those have been lowered, and diabetes is a scourge, of course. And the people were paying way too much for it, and the government was able to negotiate and get it down. And this is one of the things. Why not let Medicare negotiate the drug prices? And this has been something because it would cut the bottom line for the pharmaceutical companies, for big pharma. And so there's tremendous resistance to this idea, but it would obviously help the average American consumer.
The thing about diabetes, if somebody's born with diabetes, that is unavoidable. Most diabetes that people get late in life is caused by the diet that people have, self-induced. No.
Absolutely, I agree. I have type 2 diabetes, and I'm taking certain medicine. I'm neglecting it, really. I don't even remember when last time I had the blood test or insulin. I prefer not even to think about it, but I'm taking medicine every day. So far,
Sasha, you know that vodka is your better cure. You know that you're having the vodka instead of your medicine.
Cutting too close to the bone there, Mark.
that's true. I like to drink socially, of course.
Sasha, if you had life
I
to live
smoke
over,
cigars, but anyway.
if you had life to live over again, Sasha, would you eat differently?
If what?
I
Life to
certainly
live
would,
over
yes.
again, would you eat differently?
If I knew now what I knew then, if my parents fed me processed meat, come on. It's I had a bologna sandwich packed for me every lunch in my lunchbox. So, yeah, I think, but a lot of it was due to not ignorance, but nescience. You can't know everything. And when we were growing up, we didn't know. We were playing around with our shirts off in the sun. And, now I've had many types of melanoma and types of surgery and chemical processes to treat it. So these are the types of things that we simply didn't know better because we couldn't know better. And now we do know better. So we can treat it. But I don't shame anyone for their diet producing late stage diabetes in their later lives, because the shame is just a low vibration. It doesn't help anyone. But, if we knew now what we knew then, of course we would do things differently. But what we do know now, we can apply in our daily lives. And so I've changed my eating patterns tremendously. And I think that's a wise thing to do. But, I don't preach it. I don't go out and tell people that they should.
Richard Nixon, I have one thing in common with Richard Nixon, and that is I have a fireplace going all the time. I love fires, and summer and winter, my fireplace is going. So I have that in common, but he cut out school lunches. Richard Nixon cut out school lunches, and school lunches were put together by knowledgeable people to make sense from a nutritional point of view.
Of course.
Yeah, that makes sense. My grandmother was a cafeteria.
How can you learn if you're hungry?
Like that and everything. But Sasha, what was the diet in Ukraine and Russia? Because I just heard Jim say that he had bologna sandwiches, and I do remember the lunchbox. I don't think that Mom packed bologna sandwiches in those because I think that we actually
had a Twinkie. I got a Twinkie.
Well, in Soviet Union, the diet was consisting of food that you could get. There was nothing that you could choose. A lot of people would going
I'm sorry to laugh.
war.
It was sad.
and they had a little. It's not a bag; it's something that you could keep in your pocket. And after work or before work, you would go to some stores and you would stay in line. You could register into the line in the morning, and after your work, you would be filled. If there is something to be filled of, some food, whatever you could get, and that food was your diet. That was your lunch, dinner, and breakfast. Anything, whatever you could get. Even simple things like milk, butter, the ham, or cheese, or just basic food. It
They were,
was
they were
daily
not simple
struggle.
there. Yeah. Well, I grew up in Yugoslavia. The first 12 years of my life, I grew up over there. And constantly, like in Russia, they had these 5-year plans, and the 5-year plan completed in 4 years, and another 5-year plan completed in 4 years. And yet still, my sister and I, our parents sent us out to get milk in one store and eggs in another store and butter in another store. Insane. So that borscht.
You know what's the problem, Milan? That when you're going to first store to get, for example, butter, and
Yeah.
then you're planning to go to the second store to buy cheese, but that second store already ran out of cheese because there were so many people who wanted to buy it. So you end up with butter, no cheese. You're lucky to get some loaf of bread, and so now you know what's going to be tomorrow your breakfast. It's bread with butter. That's all what you got. Now, butter was not always available either. So, it was a constant struggle.
Is borscht made of beets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Borscht, yeah, and that's a very common food in the Soviet, in the former Soviet Union and in Russia today.
Well, it's actually Ukrainian food more than anything else, but it was very popular in the Soviet Union because actually it could have been meal by itself because it's
A friend of mine has got a PhD in Russian history, and he spent 8 months living in Moscow. Says a student was asked, "What's the difference between socialism and capitalism?" And the student says, "Under capitalism, man exploits man. Under socialism, is the other way around."
I love it.
True.
So the difference is, if it rains in New York City, every second corner will have somebody wanting to sell you an umbrella for $5.
Yep.
Yeah. If it rains in St. Petersburg, you got to go to a department store, and you have to walk up 6 flights because the elevator isn't working and the escalator isn't working. And then you get up there where they sell umbrellas, and you hope you personally know somebody in order to get an umbrella. That's the difference.
Or most likely there would be sign, "No umbrellas." We ran out of umbrellas. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh.
So when people are talking about that Democrats are socialists and they're going to say they're going to build socialism in the United States, these people don't understand what they're talking about. They
Absolutely.
don't know what is a socialism. The number one, what differentiates socialism from any other system is that government owns all means of production. So therefore, the people, they don't have any means of productions and all. So that is what is socialism.
Right.
So that's not what either Democrats or
No, never.
whoever
Right.
be able to
They,
ever.
they confuse the social safety net so that, we have Social Security, for example, when you get old and retire, and, you have a monthly income guaranteed to you, and you pay into it as you're doing your working career.
Right.
That's a social safety net, but people confuse that with socialism, which, as you say, is how it's the means of production that's important, and it's government controlled. No one is proposing that the government controls the means of production in the United States. At least no candidate I've heard say that.
Nobody's saying that. But Edmund, Sasha, what exactly is radical? Because that's what they keep trying to paint Kamala as and everything. And I'm still trying to figure out what is the definition of radical, because I think I've mentioned to you before, Sasha.
Oh, MAGA hat wearers. They're radical.
Terrorism is somebody else's freedom fighter. So the whole definition can get confused. But I know that they're definitely, if you watch all the commercials, they're trying to say that she's a radical and a Marxist.
A
I
Marxist.
heard yesterday something else from Trump. He accused Kamala Harris that she hates Israel and she hates Jews.
Oh
And I
my God.
never figured out, where did he get this lunacy? Where did he get it? Especially Kamala
There's no
Harris.
low that's too low for him to go.
She has Jewish husband and the children, and she keeps a kosher food in the house or so on.
Yeah.
So where did he get that lunacy?
I have no idea where these thoughts pop into that demented head. It's really strange what comes out of his mouth.
Because I can't figure out either, Sasha, because I'm going like, last time I checked, Doug Ermoff is Jewish and has been Jewish for the entirety of his life and everything, and that is her.
And she hates Israel.
And her
According
only,
to who?
and her only husband, because unlike because he has been married before, but that's her only husband. So, like I said, it seems to me that she likes Jewish men, if nothing else, because she's married to a Jewish gentleman and everything.
Yeah, just preposterous. But you know, it's probably the same source that gave him the people eating the dogs and cats. You know. So.
I heard a story of somebody sitting on the street in Tel Aviv, very sad looking. So somebody comes by and said, "What are you so sad about?" He says, "I want to be where my people are." "What are you talking about? You're here in Tel Aviv." "Oh no, my people are in New York City."
Yeah, you reminded me of the Borscht Belt when you were talking about Borscht. That's where the Jewish comedians did their, you know, they couldn't play in New York City, but they could go upstate a little bit, the Cascades and stuff like that, and have their shows and be welcomed and make a living. So we have more help in the United States too.
Jim, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't some of the Jewish performers have an opportunity because there was some cross community between the African American and the other community? So I want to say that there were some Jewish performers then when the time of segregation and bias were going on, they literally were performing at the Apollo. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there have been some
sure
that have definitely performed at the world famous Apollo Theater in Harlem.
Right.
Sammy Davis Jr. said, "I got one eye only. I'm black and I'm Jewish." What kind of comment?
I remember a very well publicized concert many years ago in Israel where famous is the conductor and fantastic pianist Daniel Barenboim.
Yeah, right.
Conducted orchestra where there were Jewish and Palestinian musicians, and they were playing music on a very high level, very sophisticated.
Sure, yeah.
It was a great concert. Unfortunately, they no longer practice this, but I think that was a very great contribution of Daniel Barenboim to the world culture and world peace. And
I agree.
what's now happening is unacceptable, unfortunately. And Kamala Harris, by the way, she said that Israel has a right to defend itself. However, it's also important how it does it. And
Absolutely.
her response was very measured, although she could be criticized by both Israelis and Palestinians as well. It could be, but I think her answer was
If she has offended both, then she's in the right place.
yeah, I believe so. And Trump didn't address, actually, he was asked several times question if he has any regrets about January 6th, and he was criticized watching on television for 2 hours without doing anything about what should be done. He wouldn't answer the question. He was asked 3 times the same question. He wouldn't answer that.
Well, the thing, Sasha, that she said multiple times was, you know, what unites us is stronger than what divides us. Or I'm butchering what she actually said, but it's we have more similarities than differences. And you know, when we play chess together, when we make music together, this is something that demonstrates that profoundly. Because you know, we're all in it for the love of something else, and it doesn't matter what our background is. It doesn't matter how tall or short we are. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, like what color your skin is. None of that matters. It's the love of the art that you're performing, and or in sports, the same thing. You know, these are the types of things that can bring people together, and we don't need people driving wedges between us. and saying they're bad and we're good, or saying everything I did was great and everything they're doing is terrible. We don't need that kind of person having the bully pulpit. We need somebody who's uniting us.
We are very
Absolutely.
good. We are very good at identifying a problem first and then dealing with it. It was in our lifetimes that the blacks went to the back of the bus, and then they elected a black president. And Kamala Harris is also black. She's liable to get elected. But we have to identify that as the problem, first of all. So now, climate change was not identified as an issue under Trump, but now it is, and we're going to do something about it.
He will undo all that the Biden administration has done. Of course, he will undo it all.
So before we finish, do you think we will see a second debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump?
No, but probably unlikely. But why don't we see a debate between their running mates, the potential?
Yeah, we will. That's scheduled.
Yeah, October.
October, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Okay, so there are a lot of interesting things happening on the stock market and politics, and so far it's working well. Something tells me that investment community is accepting the fact that it could be that Donald Trump will not be U.S. president in the upcoming election. He's not going to be elected. So,
Yeah. And the bottom line is that the economy has been booming under the Biden administration. The stock market has soared under the Biden administration. So all of the nonsense that Trump spoke last night, just as much as you can, just ignore it. It's not true. So, what the market should want is more of the same. The last recent years, same, not going back, going forward the same way with momentum, because, people, I know that I have profited greatly in the recent years. And I just think that there's no sign of a recession, except for the Fed has been trying to artificially create it. But this month, I think they will cut, and will cut a quarter percentage point. That might disappoint people that want 50%, but I think, or 5%. It's like I think that they will generally keep cutting until it goes down to about 4%, and then they'll probably stop cutting. But I think that we will continue to see these rate cuts, and I think that will help the economy. And I have a very positive short-term outlook on the state of affairs, regardless of how much people are afraid that Democrats would ruin the economy.
Sasha, before we get out of here and everything, I have a programming question to ask you. Are we taping the chess show Thursday or Friday? And all along those lines, I think it's Friday, but I just wanted to confirm that and everything.
Yes, it will be Friday at 12 o'clock at noon.
Okay.
Jim, you please join us if you can. And Milan, if you'd like to be on that, you're always welcome. And also we'll have a Ukrainian show at 11 o'clock on Friday as well.
Yes. Cool.
Things are looking actually better and better and better for Ukraine.
They are.
Glad to hear that.
I don't believe that Ukraine needs any peace with Russia whatsoever, especially now that it seems to me that by Friday, all the restrictions of using U.S. weapons, and not only U.S., but UK and others, on Russian territory, it will be all lifted. So Ukraine will be no longer restrained.
There are very few Russians who want to be in that war, and there are very few Ukrainians who don't want him out of there.
And it's nonsense to talk about Russia as a communist country. It's a dictatorship, and Putin doesn't care about his people. They're suffering. So this is the bottom line, and if you get rid of Putin, someone worse might take over. So who knows? But this is what's the problem with having a dictator, someone who's a centralized government run by one person's will. And he's not going to change. So there's going to be an uprising within Russia to make things satisfactory.
A benevolent dictator can be all right. Like Marshal Tito in Yugoslavia was a benevolent dictator.
That's true.
But that succession is a problem.
Yes, the worst case government is a bad emperor. The best case is a good emperor. But when you get a bad emperor, it's really bad.
I would like to remind you about Romanian dictator Ceausescu.
Oh yes,
When he
remember him well.
was killed by his own soldiers
Right.
and
Yeah.
his wife too, his rating was 98%
Approval.
approval rating.
But Sasha, is he a good emperor or a bad emperor if he has no clothes on? Because I know that's a favorite story and everything, the emperor with no clothes on. So I don't know if that's a good or bad emperor. It probably depends on what kind of clothes he doesn't have on and what he is carrying. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Mussolini, by the way, didn't do much better than Ceausescu, if you remember history. But what I would like to remind everybody, and it's quite serious, that if you look at world literature like Remarque, for example, or even go all the way back to Iliad and Odyssey, the war is always a tragedy. There was never a war portrayed as something important, something wonderful. It was always a tragedy. And if you remember in Iliad, greatest warriors of Greeks like Odyssey and Achilles, their mother were trying to hide them so they would not have to join this war. So these great heroes, they were not proponents of war, and mothers were trying to hide them from that. So there's even this war with Russia and Ukraine, it's a greatest tragedy right now.
Awful.
In a war when Russia
And what's going on in
absolutely
Gaza? Absolutely.
openly, aggressively attacked Ukraine. This is the most horrible thing. Although the first attempt was in 2014 when they annexed Crimea and started annexation of Donbass, but the full-fledged war started just in February of 2022, and especially now when the Russia is trying to create a horror of complete genocide of Ukrainian people in cities by bombardments and with different bombs and so on. They had to be stopped. And the only way to stop for Ukrainians have means to distract their airfields from which their bombers are taken off and inflict damage on Russian cities and depositories and ammunition and depositories as well. And it's very interesting by Friday that the full announcement will be made by NATO countries, including US. And we'll see that most likely will stop the war than Trump's reference that he has great relationship with Putin and Zelensky and all this nonsense.
Yeah, Putin thinks he's a useful idiot.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the thing about Putin, he will be succeeded probably by another Putin. When Stalin died, he was succeeded by Khrushchev, and Khrushchev was followed by Malenkov, and I don't know. They were all exactly the same kind of people until Gorbachev came along.
Well, Khrushchev actually denounced the Stalin and Stalinism system, and he freed a lot of people from Gulag. Okay, that may not mean a lot, but still it was at least something. It was then the Brezhnev, he was like, he wanted to keep status quo. He didn't want to go one way or another one. And Gorbachev, he was almost forced to do these reforms simply by that time when Reagan announced that the Russia, Soviet Union is evil empire. And he announced this new strategy to have lasers in cosmos, and Russia was far behind technologically and financially, by the way, too. And the oil went down to $6 a barrel, so Gorbachev had no other way. By the way, oil, if you're following, is going down almost every single day. That's really something. And by the way, some of you are admiring Warren Buffett and his investment in Oxy, Occidental Petroleum. is going down substantially, well below the level that he acquired it. And so, according to your theory, Milan, he has to acquire even more Occidental petroleum at cheaper prices.
Not individual stocks.
Not okay, you're right. You're right. You're right.
You're both right.
Yeah, you're both right. So he's not going to acquire more Occidental, but it's very bad for shareholders of Occidental Petroleum.
Well, oil is a temporary measure. The temporary is going to be pretty long. This cup that I drink from is from Uruguay, and Uruguay derives over 90% of its energy from renewable sources, and that's possible. In Canada, we have a lot of energy coming from flowing rivers because we got so many flowing rivers.
Yes.
Quebec is actually
Quebec. A lot of it in Quebec. And
technology and innovation. These are going to be the saviors if we get saved at all. And there's no question that we should be putting resources, R&D, the old-fashioned R&D, into these areas, as companies and as a government as well.
And I would like to remind, before the COVID, I visited Copenhagen, and in the sea, as much as you could see, there's a wind power generator. They're supplying substantial amount of energy in Denmark.
Appropriate technology. Use water where it's water. Use wind where there's wind. It's sun where there's sun. So
it depends on geography of each country and
absolutely
the area of the country where you are. But it's possible. It's available, and I think it's the way of the future. So with that, I would like to conclude our program for today. Thank you very
much.
Yeah, for participating, and we'll see you next week, same place, same time. Have a successful week.
Good to see you, Milan.
Bye, everybody.
See you both.